Yo, it's your boy Logos, and today we're gonna react to Thomas Sowell. And the reason I want to react to more of his content is just because I love history, and he's a perfect avenue to learn more about the world, politics, and economics. So let's get into it.
Tom, reparations. We began by talking about disparate impact, the idea that discrimination is so deeply embedded in the American experience that it can take place even in the absence of an intention to discriminate. So this argument, which is that there's some basic flaw or sin that's still with us, comes up in the case for reparations. Longish quotation, but it sets something up. But from Ta-Nehisi Coates in an article in The Atlantic entitled "The Case for Reparations." White supremacy is not merely the work of hot-headed demagogues, but a force so fundamental to America that it is difficult to imagine the country without it. And so we must imagine a new country. Reparations is the price we must pay to see ourselves squarely. The wealth gap merely puts a number on something we feel but cannot say, that American prosperity was ill-gotten and selective in its distribution. What I'm talking about is more than recompense for past injustices. What I'm talking about is a national reckoning that would lead to spiritual renewal. Close quote.
What does he mean by spiritual renewal? Is he trying to say that Black Americans will feel uplifted by the fact they'll have money in their bank account? I mean, to assume that, you're already assuming that Black Americans don't have any money in their bank account. I just don't understand what the spiritual part is. I hate when they try always mix in some metaphysical stuff to go along with it to make their political agenda or their ideas sound more plausible. To me, it just sounds like more nonsense. I'm not a fan of reparations. Honestly, I don't think it's necessary. The best thing you could do is cut out corruption, cut out racial spending, cut out corporations and all these other people who get away with putting their money away or keeping a lot more money than they should in comparison to the average everyday person. And they should be taxed equally and fairly, just like everybody else. And once you do that and actually put that money that they will be giving back to the government and put that into like programs with oversight in the community, you can have programs and more education. You can have businesses grow. If we cut out stuff like gang violence and all this other stuff we do in the city, maybe we can have more Black businesses grow and be stable and be passed down. Maybe we'll have less gentrification and less of Black people trying to leave the ghetto if we made the ghetto into a prosperous, nice place. Not try to build the ghetto up into some nice, downtrodden struggle with some roads in the concrete type metaphor bullshit. We need to stop that stuff and be honest about our situation.
And Tom Sowell makes what of that?
Well, it tells me that I've made the right decision not to read the Atlantic for decades. Slavery is a very big subject. I have in my home an entire bookcase of books about slavery in various parts of the world and various times of history. And the sad fact is that slavery has been a universal institution for thousands of years, as far back as you can trace human history. And what we're looking at is if slavery is something that happened to one race of people in one country, when in fact the spread of it was around the world. In 1776, which is when Adam Smith published The Wealth of Nations, as well as when the United States got started, he said that Western Europe is the only place in the world where there is no slavery. And even the Western Europeans had vast numbers of slaves in the Western Hemisphere,
yes,
but not in Western Europe itself. And so if you're going to have reparations for slavery, it's going to be the greatest transfer of wealth back and forth, and between and cross hauling, as they say in the railroads, because the number of whites, for example, who were enslaved in North Africa by the Barbary pirates exceeded the number of Africans enslaved in the United States and in the American colonies before that, put together. But nobody is going to North Africa to ask for reparations because nobody is going to be fool enough to give it to them.
Nobody's going to destroy the economy or destroy the government or GDP to give reparations for something that happened hundreds of years. I'm sorry, for something that happened hundreds of years ago. It's just not plausible. It's not the people alive today that'll get the money were actually enslaved or not. You have slaves in China. You have slaves in all throughout the world, parts of Africa, but nobody talks about it. But it still goes on today. The cobalt mines that power our iPhones and stuff like that. That's made through slavery. Women and children and men are all enslaved in Africa in the cobalt mines. What about the iPhones that be made in China? I'm pretty sure almost everybody, well, not almost everybody, but most people have heard about the factories and how people jump off the buildings and they had to put up nets to stop people from committing self-deletion by jumping off the building because they're tired of working that factory day after day after day for long hours with low wages. That stuff nobody cares about. But over here, we constantly got to hear about slavery instead of focusing on ourselves, what we could do better. And that's all I'm worried about doing, just focusing on ourselves.
Here we have intellectuals who can imagine a different history from the rest of the world, even though it's so similar to the rest of the world.
So well said. And even nowadays, they're trying to twist history and rewrite history for their own political agenda or for their own political ideology. Same thing, but you know what I mean. They're trying to twist history now and say that medieval Europe was diverse, full of people from all around the world, when that's just not true. The whole point of progress and technological progress is because we could do stuff previously that they weren't able to do. You couldn't travel the world and just interact with so many different people all the time. It took so long. And people were so used to staying where they were because they were so used to it. Plus, if you did go to another place, yes, you would be the minority, and oftentimes it would be hard for you to assimilate to that place. Really, the only time that you have like a minority within the empire is after that empire conquered that land. So it wasn't previously a minority. Previously, that minority was just that culture and that group of people who control that land. But they probably lost that war, or they gave up their territory, and now they live within the empire and they're a minority now. Stuff just shifts and changes. We so focus on United States history that we don't look at world history. And the world history is much more complex than what we try to talk about on social media or what they say on CNN all the time. But that's all I gotta say. It's your boy Logos, and I'll see y'all next time.